Welcome to Indie Pop, folks, with Damian Salty G and heel Trina herself, the Marky Smart. Thank you, New Age Insiders Network, for hosting us, The Last Mark Standing. You can find us at lastmarkstanding.com on SoundCloud and iTunes, respectively. But we took a break from the holiday season. I think a lot of us are holidayed out. My Grinchness has now kind of subsided, so I'm a little bit more excited to get involved with professional wrestling again. But there wasn't a lot of stuff going on by me this past, I want to say Christmas and or New Year's. I spent my time actually re-watching certain independent wrestling events and matches. And I said it once, I said it again. I'll say it one more time for the folks at home who can't hear me. Leo Rush versus Ken Broadway at HOG6. It is on my Twitter at Dare to be Damien. You need to check that out. That is my 2016 indie match of the year. I was there in person. I loved it. It was action-packed. It rivals for me Nakamura Zayn as my overall match of the year as far as energy is concerned, and as far as just the joy of pro wrestling, the unmitigated joy of being a pro wrestling fan as well as an independent wrestling fan. I also went back and I rewatched Cody Rhodes versus Matt Riddle from HOG Unbreakable, and a little tidbit of info about that. Trina, I don't know if you know this, but it was supposed to be Big Mike Elgin versus Cody Rhodes.
Oh,
and Matt Riddle had to fill in because Mike, I don't know if Mike was injured at that point or just
he might have had that orbital, right? Yeah, the orbital bone situation.
Yeah. And so Matt Riddle filled in, and you could tell while watching this match, at least I could tell, the chemistry was just off. Between Riddle and Rhodes, and I felt that, and I said it before on a previous episode of Indie Pop, just it felt like he was going through the motions, and it seems as if his WWE style was brought over to the Indies, and sometimes it just doesn't work. Tonight or this tomorrow morning, whatever you want to call it, but Wrestle Kingdom against Juice Robinson, formerly known as CJ Parker. Juice. I'm not staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not. I'm sorry.
Right. We have enough friends that are doing that anyway. It's fine.
Yeah. So if anyone's watching Wrestle Kingdom, just let us know overnight, like what happened. I'll watch the replay at some point. But yeah, that was my whole spiel with dealing with. Yeah, it was my week. I just kind of decompressed a lot from wrestling. I didn't watch a lot of anything except for those 2 matches. And talking to a couple of wrestlers in private on, and slipping into the DMs and such, and which I told you off air. It's just I'm starting to get recognized and known and appreciated for covering. Then people were reaching out to me, and certain independent wrestlers were asking what I thought of their matches, which I found very humbling.
Yeah,
I find that very appreciative. It's just me. I'm just a guy. But for them to reach out to me and to say, hey, Damian, what did you think of my match? And, the layout, the psychology, I thought that was cool. So big shout out to those guys and one woman for reaching out to me. I really appreciate the fact that independent wrestlers are reaching out to yours truly. But enough about me. Trina actually, she kind of lived the life of an indie wrestler.
Oh, man.
The last couple of days. I think she lived in her car essentially. And, I don't know if she showered. She'll get into that a little bit more. But Trina, you want to let the audience know about your travels?
Yeah. So I started, I guess, for the Friday before Christmas, Kansas City. And I was going to be spending Christmas with family in Rochester, New York. So I was going to do the 15-hour drive from Kansas City to Rochester, and stopping somewhere in Ohio in between, because it's, split maybe like 7-8 hours, something like that. And so, left the Friday before Christmas, stopped in Dayton, which is cool because I know a lot of the guys that wrestle out of there for Rockstar Pro. So that was cool. But I was only there for a couple hours, just, sleep and then, get back on the road, get to Rochester for the holidays. So, but on the way back, I extended the trip, went back to Dayton and saw Rockstar Pro Wrestling show, and then went to Chicago and saw the last AAW show of the year. And then actually headed back to KC on New Year's Eve. So as the clock struck 12, for 2017, I was in the car. I wasn't tweeting. I was tweeting maybe like 20 minutes before midnight because I'd stop for gas or something like that. And but I pretty much spent 2016 into 2017 doing what I have done most of this year, which has been driving from an indie wrestling show and going home or going to an indie wrestling show. So in the car on one of my more like familiar routes. So yeah, I had a long week, and I really, I really felt like, I think I even tweeted it like the day or two before I was about to go home. I was like, I really feel like what an indie wrestler feels like. I'm so exhausted. Like I couldn't wait to see my bed, like my own bed. Like, because I did a mix of like hotels and like staying with friends and stuff like that. And it was all comfortable, like, and it was great, like seeing people but it's just like being at home, like I just kept thinking back to the fact that I hadn't been home in like a week or like 7 days or 3 days, stuff like that. And so it was really exhausting. So I don't know how these guys and girls do it, because I just did it for a week. And it almost killed me, and I just attended 2 wrestling shows. I didn't even wrestle. So I don't know. I don't know how these guys do it. So props to them, because it's a hard life.
It's a hard knock life for us and for them, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's the big question, actually.
Okay.
Did you miss the dogs?
No, I brought the dogs with me.
Oh, they were with you.
They went with me. Yes. Yeah. So, it worked out, like the hotels and stuff that we stayed in, like, were pet friendly. And then, the other places that we stayed, knew our dogs and stuff like that. So I actually brought the dogs with. And so, which is fine. They're Chihuahuas. And so whatever negative attributes you like to give to Chihuahuas, they are that, but they're actually really good car dogs, like driving long distance. I mean, I've moved 5 times with them, and so they've done long distance drives before. I would say the only issue driving with dogs is that when you're doing like 8-10 hours a day in the car, when you finally get to that hotel room or wherever you're staying for the night, they have a ton of energy. Like, so that's the only thing, is that like they're great in the car. Like they just sunbathe and sleep the whole time. But then when we get where we're staying, they're just like stir crazy.
Wait. Back up 2 seconds. You just said the dog sunbathe?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. What? Dogs love to sunbathe. Yes.
What?
Yeah. I mean, yes. So if you have a dog, you probably know, especially if you have like a big picture window or like any sort of area in your house where the sun comes in. A lot of dogs like to just like lay in the sun.
Okay, because when you're telling me this, I'm thinking they have the tanning shield out, the mirror, they put some Copatone on them or something, like,
right. No, it's perfect. It's like, if, because when you're driving, sometimes the sun hits you like in a weird angle or whatever.
You get the weird car tan.
Right. And so it's like, it's perfect when the sun hits the passenger seat where they are and they're sleeping, because they're just like out, like they like sleep. And so that's like the perfect driving conditions, is if like the sun is hitting them and they're just like asleep in the front seat. Like they're all buckled up, by the way. I don't just like willy-nilly like drive my dogs around. They have like a car seat and everything. So I don't know if this is making me sound like a better or worse human being, but they have like buckles and all this different stuff. So they're secure. Don't worry. But yeah, I mean, driving around with I wish wrestlers could drive around with their pets. I know a lot of wrestlers have pets and they have to leave them at home. And, so I was lucky enough to do the like 7-day, 8-day trip from Kansas City to the East Coast and back with my dogs. So,
okay. Did you bring the dogs to Rockstar Pro?
I did not. They stayed in the hotel, which they've done that before. It's weird. I've done it in St. Louis. Like if I can't get a sitter for the dogs and I am going to a show, I'll just find a pet friendly hotel. Get them settled in and then go to the show for a couple hours and then back. I mean, I guess the only thing it limits is like the post show party or anything like that. Like I usually can't do, because the dogs will have been alone for a while. So they're road dogs.
like road dog Jesse James.
Yeah, exactly. They're used to my hobo wrestling lifestyle at this
point. Wrestling lifestyle.
They know their mom like goes from town to town.
Oh my God, you're like you are a carny. That's what's happening now. You have become a carny.
Right? Exactly. And the dogs are just like, okay, we're carny dogs now. Like that's the way life is. Like we're with mom. That's all that matters. So.
Oh man. Okay, so you couldn't bring the dogs to AAW, but from what we were talking about off air, didn't you make a new fan? Or did you make a new fan in terms of like pro wrestling over there in AAW?
Oh, it was at Rockstar. This is over
at Rockstar. Yeah.
Yes. So it was Rockstar in Dayton, which this is my second time back, which the very first time I went was a huge success. I was there during one of their pay-per-views. Dave Chris won the championship. I I made a big impression on everybody, and I started putting them over a lot. And so people have been waiting for me to come back to Rockstar Pro in Dayton for a while. And so since I was driving back from Rochester to Chicago, it was perfect to hit Dayton on the way. And they had their usual Wednesday night show, but last week's show was a charity benefit for a local family. They'd lost a child. I think he was only 3 years old. And so the charity was to help them pay for the expenses and things like that. And so it was a really heartfelt night. A lot of the wrestlers were thanking everybody, not just for coming out every week, but specifically for this week because it was going to be helping a family. And so it was really nice to it added to the atmosphere that Rockstar Pro has, which I've said time and time and again is very familial. I mean, you see the same people all the time, like everybody's happy to be there. And it's just like, it is walking into like a family reunion every time you go to Rockstar Pro because it's the same wrestlers that are there. A lot of the guys are from the area. All the locals are there and they're from the area. And so it's just like everybody knows each other. And so the best part about last week going to Rockstar Pro is that I think hopefully we made a new fan out of Enrico. If you guys listen to our show, Last Mark Standing, and also Indie Pop, Enrico is one of our youngest fans, if not the youngest Last Mark Standing fan. And I met him at Rockstar Pro way back when. We sat next to each other and I told him about our podcast and he listened to it and was like, yeah, you guys are not the typical wrestling podcast. Like, I love it. Let me listen to it. Let me tell my friends and stuff like that. And so he actually brought his little sister to the show.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. He brought his little sister to the show. And like, I fell in love with this little girl. I mean, she was a WWE mark. Like the second I told her, cause like, for example, Heidi Lovelace was there and I was like, Heidi just got signed. I'm like, you're going to see her in NXT. She got so excited. So, I mean, it's stuff like that. Like, I think for her, seeing a girl at one of these events was big, especially a girl that knew stuff about wrestling, that knew the wrestlers. And like, I feel like she had the best time. I'm really hoping she did. And it was just the best part of it. Like I was excited to go back to Rockstar Pro anyway, but to possibly make a new fan out of like a young, like a young female, job done. So
isn't that what we do here at Indie Pop and in Last Mark Standing? That's what we do. We want to make new fans into independent wrestling, as well as to look at wrestling in a bigger light. I mean, I myself I made Rick Castle into an independent wrestling fan. I've also made a new fan in Matty Ice, who comes with us now to indie events. And it's so wonderful to see that and I'm not going to pat ourselves on the back, but I am going to take a little credit for expanding people's viewpoints, and people like Hokai and Papa Hales. Those are the people that really inspire others to want to get to understand independent wrestling. And it's not just, I say it like a broken record, it's not just bingo halls and armories. And don't get me wrong, there will be some places like that. Yeah, there will be some venues where you barely can fit in 60 people, but yet they sell 900 tickets. That's part of the fun. I guess that's part of the fun. But if anything, it's the experience. And it seems by all indications, Rockstar Pro was a great experience, not just for you, but for me as well, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, she had, I think, a great time. Hopefully, because I was telling her about the wrestlers and she wanted to go talk to some of them. And it was, it was really cute because, they were all super nice. I mean, because that's the thing, like I said, all these guys, they're here every week. The locals are always there every week. Everyone knows each other. And so it's like, they see a little girl and it's like perfect. They play it up perfectly. And I couldn't ask for anything better. She had a great time and this might be a little weird, but she sort of already got the vibe of what it's like being a female in wrestling because, we're talking about whatever. And then, she looks over and says to me like, oh, that guy is staring at us or whatever. And, and then her mom was there and told her mom the same thing. And I go, just ignore it. And I'm like, we're girls, like, there are not a lot of us here. Sometimes they're going to look at us like, just don't don't think anything of it. And then she was fine. Like the rest of the show was fine. She didn't care. But I did think that was a little interesting for even like, she's so young, and she's already noticing that there's a differentiation between the genders at indie wrestling shows. She was very aware, it was very clear to her that like there weren't a lot of females around. I mean, I was there, her mom, and then, maybe a couple sprinkled here and there. And so, even for a little girl, like it was obvious that this is a male dominated place. So, but she had a great time. Like I said, the wrestlers were great. She was really excited about certain matches, that I could relate certain things to WWE really helped as well. And so hopefully, I invited her to Glory Pro. So hopefully Enrico can get her down there as well. And so, it's like, we'll all get to share and then share wrestling with her, hopefully.
On a side note, this Glory Pro event is turning out to be a real last mark standing like reunion kind of thing, and and I didn't expect it to be like this. And for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, Glory Pro will be running their first show February 19th in Alton, Illinois, which is pretty much like half an hour away from St. Louis.
Yes.
I'm coming. I'm making the long 14.5-hour pilgrimage along with a few other fans, Rick Castle, a couple of other people, and some people who follow Last Mark Standing are also going to be in attendance. And I don't, I'm kind of holding my breath like, oh my God, we're going to have to really take pictures and shake hands. And I don't know if I'm ready for all of that, Trina.
Right. Well, yes. I mean, if you listen to us on Last Mark Standing, you know that Damian and I both have some level of social anxiety. And so, the prospect of meeting all of you and being in the same room with everybody for a couple hours isn't necessarily the greatest thing in the world. It's a little terrifying, to be honest. But, we love you guys. We love the fans. We're going to do it. I'm going to ring announce. I don't know how. But, we're going to go and just be a wrestling family, like be the wrestling family that we are, and just understand that sometimes we can be a little nervous, or this is not necessarily supernatural for us.
This is so not natural. And it's going to be one of those things where when people, I've had this where people have come up to me and I just give the blank stare, like, who are you? How do you know me?
Right.
And I feel so bad because I have to, I kind of go through the motions of like, oh my God, hey, but in reality inside I'm freaking out, man. I'm just like,
yeah. I mean, it's so, as long as we give that caveat and we let people know that, if you listen to some of our older episodes in Last Mark Standing, Damian and I both have social anxiety. We have a history with it. Even when we met each other for the first time, it did not go smoothly. There was like a weird hug. Yeah. So, like, just know, I know there are probably other people out there, other wrestling fans who deal with it too. We're all just going to be awkward together. Let's have fun.
Yeah. Oh, and I'd be remiss to not mention Battle Club Pro, January 21st in the Bronx of all places. Your will be in attendance, as will you, as far as I know. So
yes, hopefully.
You'll be making the pilgrimage, hopefully. Over to the Bronx. Hokai will be there, and a couple other people. I know Tim is going to be there. I'm trying to get other people from New Age Insiders, hint, hint, wink, wink, nod, nod, to come up and go to Battle Club Pro, because I'm looking forward to that. So if you see us, or you see me, because Trina's good at this stuff. Me, on the other hand, I'll put the arm out and like stiff arm you, and all of a sudden, like the palm of my hand is on top of your forehead. And you look like one of them little kids trying to beat me up, and I'm just holding you at bay. That's usually how I interact with people who I don't really know. It's sort of like, back up, or in my other line of work, I swing first and ask questions later when people surprise me. So just say, hey, it's me. If you want to hold up a sign of like, hey, Damian, it's so-and-so, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But,
or tweet us, I don't even know. I don't even know the best way to do it, because I do know that there are instances, and I'm sure this is the same for you, where you go to shows and then later on, after the show, people are like, oh, I saw you at the show. And then you're like, why didn't you say hi? like things like that. And so, if you're not the go up to us in person type of person, tweet us, be like, hey, I'm over here, like, or whatever.
Oh my God, that actually happened when I was at House of Glory. A couple of fans that me and Rick made, that we met and made at the first House of Glory show we went to, they were at this one, and they were, I was shamelessly promoting Last Mark Standing with my flyers and everything like that. And they messaged me on Twitter, and they said, look over to your left, you and your shameless self-promotion. And I look over, and they're waving at me.
Right. Yeah. See, I mean, look, we all have levels of what makes us comfortable in these situations. And so we're totally fine with that. Like, just even saying hi on Twitter, even if we're in the same room, is fine. Like, I get it, especially at some of these places where it's super crowded. Like, sometimes you can't get to people, like at AEW, the last show was super, super crowded. And I saw people from across the room who I wanted to go see, but just never made it over to that side of the room. And so, sometimes this is the way it happens when you pack that many people into a tiny Elks Lodge or whatever. Just say hello via Twitter, via like in person, doesn't matter. Let us know you're there. And so we all feel like we're all doing this together. Like we're all sort of experiencing all of this together.
Yeah. So shout out to Morgan on Twitter for first off calling out our shameless plugs and promotion. As I referenced in our previous episode, where Matt Travis literally takes a couple of my flyers, rips them up and crinkles them up to throw them in other fans, which I thought was very honorable. I mean, it's nothing saying getting involved in an indie show, like having your own promotional material taken out of your hand, crumpled up and tossed at other fans. So that was pretty cool. And considering that Matt Travis is one of the people I can't stand the most as a heel in House of Glory, it made it all the much more interesting.
Even better.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you were saying about it being a family feel or a familial feel where you're at these events. And that's one of the biggest things I want to get across to people is I want you to recognize a lot of the same people you see at events, say hi to them, give them, at least I give them a head nod at the very least. I give
head
like
nod. Exactly.
Like the solemn head nod, not the what up head nod, but like the acknowledging head nod.
Right.
And we'll exchange a glance, or if we walk by each other, we'll give each other a fist dap. And that's fine because we see the same people. But I will gladly, if you want to talk to me about pro wrestling, I know Daniel told me about this. Who I'm talking about. He wants to talk wrestling with me when he meets me. So I am more than willing to make time for fans. I'm still getting used to it. So if you see Trina and myself, and I won't be in gimmick, I'll be actual Damian. I won't be salty or anything like that. Feel free because we're in this together. You know what I mean? We're just one big old dysfunctional wrestling family. And without us, there's no you. Without you, there's no us. So it's a give and take.
Yeah. And I mean, like if you have shows near you that you want us to check out, we'll try and make them. I know, Damian's going to be going to San Francisco here in a little bit. And so he's hoping to make it out there.
Yeah. On that's a great point, Trina, because off air, we were talking about a particular independent wrestling organization that I am now going to be covering when I go to San Francisco, Hood Slam. The first Friday of every month, they hold events in Oakland, and it just so happens and coincides with me going the first week or the first weekend of February. They're having two events. So I have no excuse not to check out Hood Slam.
Yeah, guys, off air, I had to convince him. It took like 20 minutes to convince him to go to Hood Slam.
I wasn't going to go. And people from Hood Slam, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I looked at your website and all I kept thinking was, holy crap, there's a dude with like a ginormous razor blade jig attached to his head. I didn't know what to think. It's like CZW. There were people dressed like as clowns. And I hate clowns. I'm really afraid of clowns. There was like old school pics of women dressed up as Cammy from Street Fighter. Fighting Zangief and Blanca. I'm like, what am I looking at here? But as the true professional that I am, I will go watch Hood Slam. And if it's not my cup of tea, you all know this, I will gladly tell you about it. But if it's surprisingly good, I will check it out. So I will be in San Francisco again. The weekend of February 1, 2, 3, 4, February 4th, 5th, no, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, Super Bowl weekend. checking it out because I have some other work responsibilities out there. So if you're in the neighborhood, I know a couple of you have already reached out to me on Twitter at Dare to be Damian. Point me in the right direction to some pretty decent independent wrestling. Hood Slam, anyone. I don't care. I am non-discriminatory. As long as I don't have to catch a flare chop or a Mongolian chop, I'll be just fine.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you. I mean, Hood Slam is one of the places that I've wanted to hit that's on my list. And I told you off air, part of it is because they just added Joey Ryan to their roster later this year, or last year. And, I've heard a lot of things about it. I've heard it is, maybe less female friendly than some of the other promotions out there. They're a little edgier, obviously, like with the razor blade thing that you saw, and Joey Ryan's shtick is even raunchier, I guess, when he's at Hood Slam. So I've heard a lot of things. And so I've always wanted to go and check it out for myself. And so I'm glad that you have the chance to go check it out, especially, you didn't mention this, that the second show, I think one of the shows that they're doing that weekend that you're there is an all-female show.
Yeah, I think the tagline has to do with like femme fatales kind of thing. So
yes, which is perfect for you.
Yeah, which is perfect for me because if this is a predominantly or entirely women-oriented show, that's up my alley. I have been screaming for feds here in New York to feature women more prominently. I know Fiesta Pro did that. They featured mostly women on the card. I'm begging for something like that here in New York. So if there is an event in San Francisco that has mostly female wrestlers at Hood Slam, I will go to that one because I love to report on female wrestling because I view them as athletes. I don't view them as objects, as you will know, Trina. And I'm into seeing growth. I was mentioning someone the other day, I believe it's Karen Q actually, where I've seen her live 3 times. And all 3 times she has shown marketed improvement. She's just become more fluid in the ring. And I enjoy knowing that these women are putting in work. People like Penelope Ford, Faye Jackson, to name a few. I mean, the names like Manny Leone and Deonna Purrazzo, who apparently is backstage tonight at SmackDown Live. These are women that you might want to get to know. Yeah. And the more you see them, the more you watch the progression, the more I'm begging, pleading for independent wrestling organizations to have more women's wrestlers. Yeah. I need it. Honestly, I need it.
No, and the interesting thing is that, you're on the East Coast. You cover a lot of the stuff that's in and around New York and things like that. And the fact that you still have to be asking for it, and now we're in 2017. And honestly, even in Chicago at AEW, we have a lot of fans asking for it too. Most of their events do have 1 or 2 female matches, no intergender matches yet. But they really just don't spotlight women that much. And so even the bigger promotions here in Chicago and New York, like they don't do all women shows. And so for Hood Slam, for an organization like Hood Slam to do an all female show, if that is the case, which we're not sure yet, would be huge, because that sets the stage for an Evolve, for an AAW, for a Wrestle Circus or Atlanta to do an all female show, because there's great female talent all over the country. Yeah. And so it'd be great to see, just to see people that I never get a chance to see. Like I have never seen Priscilla Kelly. She wrestles a lot in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm dying to see one of her. Papa Hales references her all the time. Yes, I really want to see her.
Yeah. So there are women that I don't get to see ever. And so it would be great if some of these bigger organizations, more well-known organizations did, bring in more women's matches. That would be great. But I mean, the other thing too is I would love to see what the lineup is for that show. Like I want to see who the women are that get booked for Hood Slam and who agree to like wrestle for, what is supposedly a kind of a hostile male dominated crowd. So, I want to see what women are there, what they do, like if they put on a show, hopefully, and like what the environment's like. I'm really curious to see what your report's going to be.
You should see the face I'm giving you right now. You know my reaction. So I'm giving you one of those like, really? Yeah. Really, Trina? Yeah. Fine. As long as there's nothing like a mosh pit match, because apparently you experienced something like that. At Rockstar there was a mosh pit match.
Yes, there was so this is great because this was a Rockstar Pro in Dayton. They had a mosh pit match, which I don't even, they didn't even say how many people were in the match. There was just like bodies everywhere. Like, people just came out from the back. So there were people in the ring. There's some people outside of the ring. And then they like started the match and people started like hitting each other. And so like, it wasn't like a Royal Rumble sort of thing where everyone starts in the ring. Like it was just, whoever gets pinned first. So there were people fighting outside of the ring. Some people were fighting with fans. I mean, it was just a mess, which was still fantastic because for me, I got to see a lot of younger wrestlers that I hadn't had a chance to see. Specifically, the Bad Reed, Myron Reed, who I've been communicating with a lot on Twitter and putting him over because he's a young talent, really fantastic young talent. And I'm going to be seeing him a lot. You'll be seeing him at Battle Club Pro. He'll be at Glory Pro. And so I got to see him for the first time, and in a match that was a mosh pit match, which was craziness. He got like glory. Like he got one-on-one in the ring and did like a couple cool moves while like everyone else was fighting outside. So and I was screaming for him and it was just like a cool moment, because I'd never seen him wrestle. And in the chaos of everything, he still had a chance to stand out. And that's so awesome to me, because I was telling everyone that I was sitting around, I was like, watch out for this kid. I've been talking about him online. He's going to be really, really great. And, mosh pit match, he puts on a show. So, I mean, he didn't win. Ironically, the guy that won was the guy who spent 90% of the time arguing with a fan. So he didn't even get touched, and it was great. Some of the other wrestlers who I don't know, like they were like really playing their parts up. Like one guy just kept screaming for help. Like, and it was just funny, cause he was getting beaten up and he was just like, help me. And I don't know. It was really funny. I thought he did a great job. I mean, it's matches like that sometimes when you get to see individual talent because it's so easy to just phone it in when there's like 30 other people like doing their stuff around you. Right. But to completely sell for that whole time when you know that like maybe one or two eyes are on you, I think that's real dedication. So, props to the guys who were in the mosh pit match at Rockstar Pro in Dayton. Darren De Niro, he was also in that, and I didn't get to see very much of him. I mean, so there are a bunch of people that I know that were in this match that I didn't really get to see because mosh pit it was a mess. So, but it's cool. It's Rockstar. Like they do different stuff at Rockstar, and that's why I'm always advocating people to go and check it out.
Which is probably what I can look forward to for Hood Slam. Maybe something to that
something
level.
Different, right? Exactly. This is what wrestling's about.
Exactly, and it's about new experiences. And again, I've never been to one of these shows before, so I may be but I may be the wrestler screaming, help me. You don't know, but no, honestly, I'm just fine. I grew up in a pretty bad neighborhood of New York City, so I think I'll be fine at Hood Slam. It's not that. It's just more of a holy crap. What am I going to see when I walk in the door? But I'm looking forward to it. So that weekend, as February 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I'll be in San Francisco, actually doing broadcasting stuff. But that's something I can talk about another day over there. So the end of the year. We don't get a lot of good stuff here, like I said earlier, but you had a second show pretty much the day before New Year's Eve, AAW, I believe it was.
Yes.
So being that it was like the last show of the year, how different do you feel a holiday show, especially during Christmas, for independent wrestling, mind you, because we've seen it done countless times for WWE where you have these holiday themed shows, which are stinkers. What your opinion and your journalistic independent wrestling opinion, how was this show, being that it was a holiday show, compared to other AAW shows?
You could definitely feel like it was the end of the year show. It didn't necessarily feel like a holiday show like Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever. But it felt like I was telling you offline, it felt like everybody leaving school for the summer. And it's weird because a lot of these guys I'm seeing here in the next 2 days. And so, but last Friday, everyone's saying goodbye to each other. Like we won't see each other for a couple months, like we're all just telling each other Happy New Year, like great year, blah, blah, blah. Like everyone's reminiscing. I mean, it was such a cool feeling because I'd been to AAW so many times. I was there July. So maybe you could call that it's close to like maybe their 4th of July show, and this felt different because it did feel like end of the year. Like, this is what we've accomplished. You know, we've all been in this together for the whole year, and we're just congratulating each other and glad that we're all in each other's lives. And like, you know, it was just really cool. I mean, look, even me and Colt Cabana had one last fight for 2016.
Oh my God. Seriously? You guys are still fighting?
I don't know. It's a very, very antagonistic relationship. There was someone a fan left some of their stuff. And so one of the things that the fan left was a Matanza doll, which was really super cool. And so I was just like running around with it. I was like, this is the coolest thing. And Colt was yelling that I was trying to steal it. And we found the fan. We found the fan whose stuff this was, including the Matanza doll. And Colt started accusing me of stealing the stuff, and I called him a snitch, and we were yelling at each other, and the fan was like freaking out because he didn't know anything about about our previous relationship, you know, like that Colt and I just fight all the time. Like, he thought we were legitimately fighting. And he was very freaked out about it. Bless him, Pete is his name. And so he was just like, no, it's okay. You know, like, I left it. She didn't know, blah, blah, blah. And so anyway, Colt and I fought. I called him a snitch. And, you know, he tried to say some stuff and whatever. So we ended the year on a typical sour note, as we always do. And the fan, Pete, I ended up helping him get his Matanza doll signed by Jeff Cobb because I felt really, really bad.
Right now by saying this?
Yeah, sorry. I mean, it's indie pop. Like, there has to be some broken kayfabe. Yes. So if you don't know, Jeff Cobb plays Matanza on Lucha Underground, and he was at the AEW show last Friday selling Matanza dolls. So I guess he's sort of breaking it too. You know, like, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, I got the fan. I told the fan, I was like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't know this stuff was yours. Why don't we ask Jeff if he'll sign it? And so he signed it for him. That fan ended up hanging out with us for like the rest of the night. So he had a great experience. It was the cutest thing. I mean, because I think you and I at this point, you know, we're ready 2017 and we've been podcasting for so long. We're in that purgatory of fan / like in the business. Mm-hmm. And to hang out with somebody who was so like an adult, unabashedly Marky. And I don't know if he'll ever listen to this, but it was so refreshing. Because he just like every 10 minutes, he'd say, oh my God, I'm being such a mark right now. I'm being such a mark right now. And I was just like, don't worry about it. I told him, like, it's fine. Like, this is the good stuff. Like, this is why you should be a mark, you know, like this is an adult man. You know, he was talking about his job, like, but the fact that he was hanging out and having a beer with Jeff Cobb, Matanza, was freaking him out. And it was just the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. So cute. So, you know, I'm just saying to all the marks out there, be proud marks. You know, I'm still a proud mark. If you see me at a show, I'm still marking out at people. It doesn't matter, you know, if I'm like fighting with Colt Cabana or whatever. When another fan comes up, like, I find my place, you know, like I'm like, okay, go ahead and talk to Colt Cabana because I'm not trivializing his time or whatever, you know, like I know what this means to other fans. And just because I have more access now, or I know more people and stuff like that, I'm not, you know, I'm going to try and then still give you that marky experience. So, you know, Pete it was really cute, really awesome. But, I would just say, like, yeah, it was a great end of the year feel. Like, literally everybody was just saying, like, hey, happy new year, great year. I'll see you next year, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, I'm seeing Sammy Callihan in 2 days. And last week he's like, I'll see you next week. And I was like, yeah, I'll see you next week. So, you know, and we gave each other a hug, and it was just it was a nice way to end the year.
Yeah, you're right. It sounds as if it's one of the those. I don't want to say end of school because it does seem a little too hokey to be end of school, but it's like.
But it is. I'm telling you,
it's holiday.
A lot of hugging.
You know, it's like, hey, dude, I'll see you in a week. You know, we're going on a business trip. I won't see you for a while, so hopefully I see you in a couple of weeks. That's what it's more like. Right,
and you know what? It feels like the end of a season too, because you know, that's the thing. Like, there were a couple promos that were cut setting up new storylines for next year. You know, there were certain things that ended and, you know, so that's the thing. It's like, Sammy had a great year at AEW, but the way that they set it up for that last show is that I think you're going to see him teaming up a little bit more. You're going to see him more in like tag situations. He did strictly singles pretty much the whole year at AEW and some of the other promotions. But it felt like the end of this, the end of the sports season, because it's like, okay, let's just say now everything restarts starting,
Right.
January 1st sort of thing.
At the very least, we have something to look forward to now, and so do the fans of indie pop as well as Last Mark Standing. But a little bit more of a wrinkle for me, because I want to switch back to in-ring portion of your experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes when people are wrestling, things tend to go haywire.
Yeah.
And sometimes things don't go according to plan. Maybe people make up stuff as they go along. They call in the ring, they botch.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, we get that one thing that makes us go, holy crap.
Yeah.
And I know of it from my childhood, where I saw that they talk about this all the time, where the Rockers, quote unquote, won the tag team titles from the Hart Foundation because the top rope broke. So correct me if I'm wrong, Trina, but at AEW, was there a rope break of some sort?
There was, and it was so crazy because people who've been going to the show to AEW for years had never seen the ring break down like that. I mean, it was a piece of metal attached to another piece of metal that just completely broke off. It wasn't like a malleable piece like the rope or anything like that just snapped. It was metal breaking off of metal. And the two people that were in the match at the time, Chris Hero, who's your hero, Chris Hero, and Pentagon Jr. And so they were gonna do some sort of suplex from the top, and it just broke. And everybody was shocked, but we're all veteran wrestling fans here, all veteran wrestlers, and so everybody just kept, we were in shock, but the match kept going. They didn't miss a beat. There were times where I would have done something against the top rope, but I'm going to do it against the second rope sort of thing. Little nods to this is kind of funny, but professionals all the way. And then the crowd was in it, nobody was just like boo or like this is ratchet or, nobody made any reference to it. We all just like paid attention to the match like we would have if there were three ropes. And, they ended up going into intermission right away afterwards and getting it fixed. And they went on with the rest of the show. But it was really interesting. Chris Hero, I think. Okay. I might be wrong, but because he did a speech, he did like a long speech at the end because I guess
he's finishing.
This may or may not be. We don't know. That's the thing. I think from what I've heard from the sources that I've talked to, he doesn't have anything booked for 2017. But then I can't necessarily confirm that he is going to WWE.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard the same reports from people that he's not booked for anything specific, but that doesn't guarantee he's going to show up. Right.
Exactly. And so, there was a lot, people were asking me when I was at AEW, they're like, do you know what the deal is? Like, is this his last show? Like everybody wanted to know. And so he addressed the crowd afterwards and, addressed the fact that, look, you guys are great even when the rope breaks and like we keep wrestling. He just really applauded the fans for being fans, because I think he knew that we were all sort of like, is this your last show? And he just was happy that we even cared, and that we've been caring about him for this long, and that he could have a malfunction like that happen, and we still respect him and love him enough to just keep watching the match like nothing happened. So he did a great speech at the end. So I'm not sure I'm sure he won. I don't know. He's been winning all year. So I would say yes. But he did a little thank you. And it was funny because this show, I actually brought new family members to.
I saw that. Yes, I did. I did see that.
Yeah. New family members to a wrestling show. And I was like, guys, this never happens. Like they thought it was funny. It's kind of like Matty Ice, like thinking like it was funny that the ring was not set up. Right. Exactly. They were like, oh, this is hilarious. And I'm like, this never happens. Like, you don't understand. Like I've been to a million shows here and I've never seen the rope break. So, it was another one of those cases where I looked at non-fans, these new fans, and I was like, welcome to indie wrestling. Like that's all it is. And they got it fixed. And poor Heidi Lovelace, it was her last match at AEW. They were fixing the ring and she came out to talk to some friends, and I heard her go, you'd figure my last fucking match here and the ring breaks. Like she was supposed to go up right after intermission. So, so she thought it was funny, but aggravating at the same time. I mean, it had every element.
I've seen her work. I do really appreciate, because I saw her at House of Glory against Sonya Strong, and I thought she's the epitome of a ring general when it comes to women's wrestling. Like, she helped Sonya through that match. Yeah. And you couldn't tell that Sonya doesn't have more than 2 years experience wrestling or 3 years experience wrestling. Yes. Because they held their own. So to be quite honest, I'm so glad for Heidi and for Kimberly as well. But just knowing that, again, it goes back to what we were saying about making your bones in the independent circuit, especially women's wrestling. Like there is this new dedication to hire athletes, female athletes, to be wrestlers, not to be divas, not to be superstars, but to be wrestlers. And I love the dynamic shift. And we've talked about this on Last Mark Standing, where it's a new day, to quote, to steal that term, in women's wrestling. And I don't want to sound like that guy, but give me some more women's wrestling here in the Northeast, please. I know Shimmer's out in Chicago. And that's your neck of the woods, but I can't be going back and forth to Chicago to see Shimmer.
Yes,
I know Beyond has some good stuff. Evolve doesn't have any. House of Glory has maybe 1 or 2. So come on, people. Damian G, more women's wrestling. That's all I'm asking for. I didn't get anything for Christmas. Can you at least give me that?
Right.
Give me more women's wrestling.
Yeah, I think, and hopefully here, I think we do have a chance because a lot of people from the independent circuit got signed to WWE, men and women. We're starting to see a lot of new names. If you've been following indie wrestling for a while, you're seeing a lot of familiar names or names that have been around for a while showing up in places that you've never seen before. It's January 3rd, and some shows are putting out rosters and cards for shows that are coming up this month already. Tons of new names at new places. A lot of the women's division, a lot of the female wrestlers in the indies got signed. So I think you are going to see a lot, hopefully, knock on wood, hopefully you'll see a lot more women being represented at these shows, and a lot more women you've never seen before. Like, that's the exciting thing to me. Like, everyone knows Heidi, everyone knows Kimberly, and everyone knows like the people that we've been seeing for a couple of years now. But I think what'll be exciting for me as a wrestling fan is to hear about some of these people that have been wrestling for a while, or people who are brand new, like really young, young stars coming up. Like we mentioned, Priscilla Kelly, I think she's only like 20, 21. See what they have to offer. Because Heidi's been doing this for a while, like you can tell she's a veteran. Like you said, she's a ring general. But I want to, it's exciting to see like what the next generation of wrestlers has to bring to the table. And
Agreed.
because there is such an emphasis now on athleticism for the women, especially with Charlotte and a lot of these other women that just got signed. I want to see, like you're going to see a lot more people doing like back somersaults off the top of cages and things like that, like just get ready, like be prepared. Like, I know I don't have to tell you because you're a big advocate of women's wrestling, but I'm telling everyone else, like, I think this is the year. That we're going to see some different stuff, some new stuff, more women's wrestling. I mean, if Hood Slam's really doing that show, I mean, that's huge.
Right. So fingers crossed, toes crossed. We'll get, like you said, this is the year, hopefully, that we're getting the women's tournament in WWE, and I know that's, for another show, but WWE is finally taking notice, which is so good to hear. It's so refreshing.
Right.
It just makes me happy to know.
Yeah. WWE's is just, I think it feels like finding out the things that we've known here for the last year or so. They're doing the women's tournament, which, the women did awesome this year. And so to have the tournament, that's a perfect sort of bookend to the indie season. And then they're doing the UK tournament, which UK wrestlers have also been killing it on the indie scene as well. And so it feels like WWE's finally catching up. But I would tell people, don't take your eyes off the independent wrestling scene, because there are new old familiar names that are going to be showing up in new places. And please take advantage of that. We have wrestlers from one side of the country who have never wrestled on the other side of the country who will be doing that for the first time. And we'll talk about them. I wanted to spotlight one person really quickly. I know we probably are running out of time here, but Jake Christ is really starting to show up on a lot of people's rosters. And I don't think you've ever seen him, Damian.
No, I haven't.
Okay. So he has, and we've talked about this before on Last Mark Standing, his gimmick is very Prince-like. It's like, yeah. I mean, it's not Dalton Castle. He goes by the artist. So it's more like wrestling is an art for him. And, like he really adores his fans. And I mean, look, it's on the surface, it's interesting to me. And I'm actually going to see him here in a couple days, and I'm going to try and sit him down for a little bit and see if he can explain to me what the gimmick, in his eyes, what it is. Because I think it's a good thing that we're seeing something like this, something sort of ambiguous, something sort of unexplainable. He has a big fan base. He's been wrestling for a really long time with his brother. And so there have been people that have been following him since he was in high school, wrestling. And he's got this sort of artist ambiguous gimmick. And then some of his fans are like diehard Christians. I mean, it's just such an interesting thing going on over there. And so just keep a lookout for Jake Christ because he's doing something different. And I think it's worthwhile for you guys to pay attention.
Okay. I've never seen him, and now I'm going to check him out, see if there's anything online where I can, if anyone has like a link they want to send me, tweet me at Dare to be Damian. You can always tweet Trina at the Marky Smark and our show at Last Mark Podcast. But before we get out of here, it's not all, sunshine and rainbows here for us at Indie Pop and on Last Mark Standing. There's always an incident. Something always happens to stir the pot.
Yes.
And we talked about this morning. Homicide.
Yes.
Really? What? Why is he being?
Yeah. It's tough. So this happened at AAW on Friday. It was the very last match of the night. It was actually Phoenix versus Sami Callihan. And so Phoenix and Sami had been going back and forth all year. Sami took his mask off. I mean, there's a lot of beef going on, so they had a great match. And then, in typical Sami heel style, he goaded Phoenix into like, look, I respect you, blah, 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 shake your hand, all this different stuff. And then obviously when Phoenix went to go shake his hand or whatever, Sami calls out Dave Christ and they start beating on him together. And so, OI4K, Ohio is for killers, dominating Phoenix. And so it was unfair. So Homicide comes out to defend Phoenix and you get him cleaning house. And yelling at the OI4K guys, I'm going to get you this year. I've seen what you did to my brothers, what you've done to my brothers with their masks and things like this. We're going to get back at you. And he did use a couple homophobic slurs. I'll say, as somebody that was in the moment, that was in the front row as this was happening, because he was cutting a heel promo, because it's weird because OI4K isn't necessarily a heel stable in Chicago because in Ohio they're not, like obviously like in Ohio they're perfect, like and then you have like half of the crowd in Chicago like OI4K fans, and so they're sort of tweeners. And I think they wanted to, Homicide was supposed to come out there and be a badass, like that's his gimmick. It's to like just give no F's and like go out there and cut a heel promo, even though he technically was the good guy in that situation, saving Phoenix. So in the moment, I was not immediately shocked. It wasn't like he said the words that he said and time stopped, which is sometimes what happens when these moments, occur, is that like someone says, like, the N-word or something terrible and it's like everything stops. I felt like in that moment, it not necessarily fit, but it didn't catch my ear as much. Because I was in the moment of like, this is Homicide. He says crazy stuff. He's cutting a heel promo on OI4K, which Ohio's for killers. So, I mean, it's like, it's not like he's cutting a promo on Bailey. This has got to be like a very tough worded promo. And yeah, at the moment it didn't feel that bad, you know, and then obviously once it was done, everybody was kind of looking at each other like, did he say that? And, you know, social media immediately lit up about it. And so it was really, really, the reaction was quick, because even some of my wrestler friends in St. Louis were texting me right after the match going, did Homicide really do this? So it spread like fire. It spread so quickly. And, you know, props to Homicide. I don't know if props is maybe the right way to put it, but he apologized very, very quickly and sincerely. I think he put out a video, I think within like an hour or something of the match, of the show happening, apologizing and things like that. And, you know, the way it was handled was really interesting because, like I said, it caught on like fire. People were texting, people were social media talking about it. And he tried to squash it before it could get too big. But you know, it's Tuesday now, that show was on Friday, and you still have people talking about it a little bit today.
Well, the fact that we're talking about it right now, that tells you enough right there. He's from New York. You know, he's a fellow Puerto Rican, New York born and raised. And I followed his career for a while. So I know of him. It's not like I don't know who he is. I followed him in TNA, you know, ROH. Do I like it? I don't. But do I like the fact that he apologized and said, hey, because I know the Briscoes did this. They caught some flack on Twitter a little while ago, you know, just making derogatory remarks about teaching about same-sex marriage and things of that nature. And then they responded back by saying that it was all the gimmick. You know, it wasn't, you know, that's not us. So I enjoy wrestlers coming back and saying, hey, that was me caught in the heat of the moment. Because athletes do it. Everyone does it. They'll make a, you know, and I don't like it. Again, they'll make a comment. They'll make a epitaph, and it's just like, oh, did you really have to say that?
Right. And you know, and I'm not, you know, I'm not defending anybody. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. I mean, in the case of the Briscoes, that stuff was, you know, they tweeted that stuff. So they physically typed it, saw it on the screen, and like kept it up there. Whereas in Homicide's case, this really, really was heat of the moment. I mean, think about when you're a kid, and you do something really terrible, and then, you know, like it's that one time your parents say like really horrible stuff to you. You know, like everyone's had that moment where they've done that one like really bad thing that really has your parents like lose it, and they end up saying like really crazy stuff. That's what it felt like, you know, like he just really got into the moment. I mean, look, Sami Callihan has been taking the masks off of luchadors all year and parading them around. And so, you know, if you really feel like strongly about this, which I did at some point, you know, I'm a Sami Callihan fan, but, you know, at some point the hate was real. I was telling people everywhere that I could that he was doing this, and it was terrible. I can understand it. You know, like if you're a passionate person and you're a good actor, you know, like you're just a good wrestler and you're about the gimmick, and he is about this Homicide gimmick. I can see it happen, you know, and like I said, like you said, he apologized immediately. And so I think it's a heat of the moment situation. And like I said, it didn't skip any beats in the crowd. You know what I mean? Like nobody gasped audibly or anything. You know what I mean? Like he said it and it was part of the promo. And so we all went with it, you know, like we just reacted to it as if the top rope broke and nothing happened, you know, like, but once the show ended though, everyone went to their phones, everyone was tweeting, everybody was texting and things like that. And so I think that shows you that it really was heat of the moment. And even the crowd who was involved at the heat of the moment reacted to it the same way. You know, it's a different story, I think, if he'd said something and let it sit and then everyone's reacting and everybody's but he, you know, it was just quick and it fit exactly with the situation. And, you know, it's unfortunate. I think like when you have those situations, say, for example, when our parents get really mad at us, there are certain terms that were used by different generations that don't necessarily have the derogatory terms that we put behind them, if that makes any sense.
No, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
I mean, because your parents, you know, my parents too, like they'll say a certain word and maybe to us of our generation, it means something, but to them, it's just a slur. Like it's just a bad word, you know, like doesn't have to do with a particular race or sexuality or whatever. It's just what you call somebody if you're mad at them. And And so I think sometimes when you grow up with that sort of mentality, or, you know, you have parents or generations of grandparents that grew up like that, in the heat of the moment, like some of these things come out.
Oh, please. I've said a lot of crap during the heat of the
Right.
moment that people would be like,
Yes.
Damian? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Right.
My
And
bad.
so that's, you know, this is becoming very last mark standing, but that's sort of the thing that I'm trying to explain to people, is because I told non-fans about what happened, right? And they thought the same thing, you know, because they asked like, oh, is he white? Like, you know, and I'm like, no, he's not. And he's like, well, you know, probably it's just something he heard growing up, and it, you know, he was mad and whatever. And so like even a non-fan was sort of able to rationalize it. So, you know, I know there's a lot of social justice warriors here, you know, in wrestling internet and wrestling Twitter. You know, like, yeah, we're talking about it. It's a big deal or whatever, but just don't react so quickly with the witch hunts, because he apologized. You know, AAW also said something about it. And so it was addressed. That's all I can say. It was addressed, and I think we should move on. I wouldn't say like, let's all hate homicide now. Like that's not the case.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We as adult wrestling fans, as older wrestling fans, can move on from something like this, especially after the man behind the gimmick. Remember, we're not saying homicide, the wrestler, versus homicide, the person. This could be a separate thing where the man who portrays homicide in the back of his mind is thinking, yeah, I got to apologize for this. Just even if the gimmick wouldn't do it, we're at a stage now in wrestling where they're almost, because of social media, because of the social justice warriors, they have to issue a statement. So he did it, fine. No one, according to you, nobody really skipped a beat. So let's keep it moving.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because you and me sort of advocate for that. You know, like we advocate for people looking at context and looking at maybe the reasoning behind something. You know, we're very analytical about it.
Yes, we are.
And so I think maybe that's why we're approaching it this way. I mean, obviously you can disagree with us and tweet us and slip into our DMs and things like that. But I think there's so many more things that are probably going to come up here in the next 4 years, maybe 8 years, that something like this, where it does seem like a harmless mistake, like a heat of the moment situation, or just a slip of the tongue or whatever, and the person apologized afterwards, I think this is something that we can move on from really quickly, and just focus on things that are a little bit more important.
That works for me. If you're good with it, I'm good with it. And if the fan base and the wrestlers themselves are good with just culpability, my bad, moving on, and that's fine. We don't have to keep beating a dead horse. You know, the issue will be there. It'll be prevalent. It'll still pop up from time to time. But as long as we, and I stress this very, very seriously, as we intelligent wrestling fans, thoughtful wrestling fans, can differentiate between the gimmick and the person, I think we'll be just fine.
Hopefully.
Safe to say, I think we'll be just fine. Hopefully, fingers and toes crossed. Because who knows? Maybe I'll go to Hood Slam and you know, I might get jigged in the head. You know, who knows? I might get like shot in the leg. Who knows?
You might be triggered. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, somebody got triggered listening to Indie Pop on New Age Insiders Network thing. Hey, Damian Salty G was dissing Hood Slam.
Oh gosh.
Wasn't dissing Hood Slam. All I'm saying is it's going to be an interesting time if I go to this event, and it looks like I will most likely be going to this event. But that's not the only event I'm going to. January 13th, I will be going to, Next Level Wrestling in Long Island, New York, with Matty Ice, with Rick Castle. Our personal favorite, TJ Marconi, will be on the card. My personal nemesis, Anthony Gangone, will be on the card. So that'll be fun. And people are trying to get me to like him. Stop trying to get me to like him. It's not going to happen, okay? Because people are sending me stuff from before his like major heel turn, before his main event run in House of Glory. I don't care. Nothing about him screams main event to me. It's my opinion.
Right. And guys, I mean, if you listen to the Last Mark Standing, you know, what we talk about all the time is wrestling's an art. And not everybody's going to like the same pieces of art. And so, you know, not everybody, you know, likes Monet. And so just because he's not Damian's cup of tea doesn't mean that you spend the rest of your life trying to make Damian like him. At the end of the day, Damian's he's just not going to like him. Like it's just not his style, whatever. And so respect the fact that, some people don't like your favorites.
It's like, people don't like my favorites. It's fine. People reached out to me and told me they didn't like Ken Broadway. They think I overblew him. They thought they thought I made him more important than he should be. And I'm thinking, you know what? That's your opinion.
Right.
I personally don't share that opinion that you may have, but that's what makes us awesome. That's why we can do it.
Well, and look, I've said this before. It's like you put on a show. Like we've been doing this now for a couple months, and yeah, maybe we have our favorites and we do talk about certain people a lot. But we've worked our way up here. So if you have people that you want to push and you want to promote, like, you're more than welcome to join us on top.
Well, I wouldn't. Let's not go there. I might give people a little bit too much of it. A different show. That's a different show, Trina. No one's on top. No one's on bottom. We're all here as one big dysfunctional family. Okay. But that's today's Indie Pop. That's this week's Indie Pop on the New Age Insiders Network. We are the last mark standing. Damian Salty G, my partner in crime, the Marky Smart heel Trina. Tweet us at Last Mark Podcast, myself at Dare to Be Damian, and Trina at the Marky Smart. Thank you so much, guys. New Age Insiders, again, thank you for everything. Patreon.com/lastmarkstanding. See you later, guys.
Bye, guys.